people. Hang on. Let me just see if I can. It's not going to let me. Fucking stupid thing. Circuit broke somewhere. Everything went off in my office. And nowhere else, because that's how we roll. Anyway. Okay, so let's resume. I was going to crack the shits and leave, but I thought, no, let's push through. So let's push through, shall we? Crack the shits. I may or may not have had a tantrum just now. See how we go. So anyway, let's just continue. I've only got a little bit to go anyway. So, this. And then I'll just talk a little bit about the other stuff, which is the Elon Musk thing. So, more choice. So, we had the the dark patterns thing, right? Which is fantastic. Okay. There's no problem there. And more choice on algorithm-based ranking. VLOPs should provide at least one recommender system that is not based on profiling. Again, none of this is controversial. The only real criticism that you could have is that because if you restrict Twitter this much or Facebook or whatever, if you restrict them this severely, that they will then censor people more because they're worried about being sued or they're worried about that. But that's okay, because then we understand. And this is where I think people are missing, I think, the bigger picture with this stuff is that it's only because there's no real clear agreed upon contract. I've talked about social contract, but what we need is this is basically it's basically just a Bill of Rights for the internet. It's a good template as far as I'm concerned. And honestly, I wouldn't trust anybody who's deliberately switching the misinformation, disinformation thing. But anyway, hang on one sec. Let me just put it back onto the screen. There we go. So I probably lost everyone, but that's okay. I'll just soldier on, and if you see it later, you can see it later. Because I wanted to continue, because there's nothing controversial. As somebody who's worked in most of these things are completely reasonable. When you're talking about disinformation, which is, again, the intent to spread lies, to mislead, interfere with elections, all of those things that, like I said, the criminal standard of intent, criminal intent, right? And again, they'd need to prove that in a court. That's just how it works. Much like, you say, oh, well, murder's illegal. And then we go, okay, well, what's the process around that? Same thing. But this stuff is new. This stuff is emerging, and this is a good direction. But the reason why a lot of this stuff is threatening to those who, honestly, the first thing that I would be suspicious, if anyone opposes this, then it's like, well, what scam are you running? What lies do you want to tell? There's very little that's controversial in this EU bill. And now I can also understand, like I said, sorry, I got all thrown by the freaking fucking fuse thing. But anyway, we got too many internet, too many power things in this house. Maybe I should have a few less lights. Maybe that might be the problem. Anyway, now, but the thing that I think when you understand history around, the printing press or the yellow journalism stuff, the problem of speech is that there was a conversation that occurred, there was a negotiation that occurred, and there became an agreement around what was and was not appropriate. Okay, now America, for all their commitment to free speech, they seem to really enjoy obscenity laws and censorship. Okay, fucking obscenity law. I've covered the Comstocking stuff. I've covered all of that stuff before. I'm not going to go over old territory. But what this is a step forward in understanding what the rules are. Now, a big part of the problem with Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all those things is that it's arbitrary. It's not transparent. There is no, clear rules. The rules are there, but they are subjective. So, something like hate speech, all those things, they're used as loopholes. But there's no real, but it's like, well, okay, well, if you have these rules, okay, where you can't use Twitter, yay, okay, Matthew's here. Okay, I'm back. If you're using Twitter and they're sort of being arbitrary, okay, in the way that they enforce their rules, okay, or they ban you because they're worried that they're going to be sued, they're going to have to defend that. There's going to have to be some sort of recourse, and this is what this allows for. Also, because the GOP tend to rely on this all being a Wild West, with them being able to get away with whatever they want. This is part of the reason why America flourishes the way that America fucking flourishes the way that it does, is because there's no brakes. Okay, there's no brakes on these things. There's no real, culturally speaking, being fucking trying to be nice because I keep being mean to America, but they're a fucking hot wet fart over the rest of us. Let's be honest. All right, getting on our tits. It's like, hey, America, we figured it out that, maybe the internet is, okay, let's redefine it. Let's redefine this thing, the internet, as a public place and a public good. If it's public, then you've got a conversation about what is and isn't appropriate in public. And this comes down, this extends to Elon Musk. If it's private, then there's different rules, but then the government still has a role in preventing harm and preventing abuse and intervening in certain circumstances. These are complex conversations, okay? And I'm not doing it justice. I didn't prepare or intend to go into the sort of private versus public argument. But also you can't run public utilities and public organizations like a private business. They don't work. Corporations are inherently authoritarian, which means or technocratic, but they're also at odds with democracy. They're in direct conflict. Speaking of direct conflict, in terms of authoritarianism or technocracy and those things, they are the antithesis of democracy. So if these things are a public good and a public place, then that means that everyone has to have access. That means that everyone gets the right to be on there. That means that this is where I think Elon Musk is a little, I don't know, I'm a little on the fence with him, right? Because I'm a bit concerned. I don't know whether he's got I think he's just got a communication problem. Because there's this, I've been watching some of the coverage around his commitment to free speech, but everyone's trying to trip him up and try to, take him, he's doing the rounds, obviously, and he's saying various things. And he keeps saying that he's going to commit to the laws of each country. Now that that has problems. Like I've said it before, Saudi Arabia, right? If social media is public, then women allowed out in public, okay? In Australia, I'd like pointing this one out. Technically, it's illegal to swear in public here, okay? That can be enforced at any time. Doesn't work, but there's a legal argument for it, which is that, okay, if this is a public space, then you're expected to conduct yourself as if you're in public. And this is where these vulgar fuckhead flashers don't like it. They don't like women on it. They don't like people saying things they don't like. They don't like being told to fuck off and put their dick away. Okay? But they want to just be able to share whatever the fuck they want, whenever they want, at whoever they want, and call anyone who objects to that a censor. Because the thing is, it's like saying, okay, oh, Your Honor, all right, there's a whole conservative bias. There's not a conservative bias, okay? It's just that conservatives tend to be fuckwits more. They fall afoul of it more. And yes, Twitter's different because there is an arbitrary, that sort of woke stuff is separate. There's no left-wing bias at Twitter. The wokes aren't left-wing by any stretch of the imagination, okay? But yeah, the AP article was bizarre. What? Yeah. Oh, God. Is anyone doing journalism? Why am I doing journalism? I'm not one. I feel like I'm the only, it's like, fuck me. The AP. Jesus. It's just like, does anybody bother to do any actual fucking journalism anymore? But, but when it comes to the DSA, okay, it's a good law. It's implementing stuff that should have been implemented a decade ago, okay? This is, if anything, it is behind. But the thing about this so-called bias at Twitter, okay, there's no left-wing bias, okay? I think Musk is trolling. I think he knows. I'd say this is where, again, being charitable. My problem is that my tendency to be charitable and understanding is my blind spot, because then I tend to get taken advantage of. So I'm just going to steel man Elon Musk for a minute, which is that he knows that, left versus right doesn't exist in the United States. He meets people where they're at, and he talks about the woke shit as left wing. I understand that, mate. Excuse me. Let's have wasabi peas and almonds before a stream, Taya. And soda water. Can't see how that would go wrong. Much like everything else. Anyway, always happens. Whenever I've got something good to say or something, it's like fucks up. Anyway, I'm not going to stick around too much longer. But I think you need to look at this bait and switch, which is the reason why this whole machine over here, and this is why I'm trying to save lefties who somehow think that entertaining this stuff is good. Like, I'm not saying don't read it. Like, you have to know it keeps a balance. It keeps you sane. But do it in a way where you're actually thinking clearly and you're observing these little sort of like these little switches, these little sleights of hand where they switch out words for misinformation and disinformation, or they slowly switch out sex for gender, or they slowly switch out, liberal and democracy to mean America. And it's not, like, this is the American MO of redefining things and sneakily edging it. That's gross. Nudging over time and inching you away from, the original definition over time. And that's what's pretty much happened over the last 100 years. They don't even know they're fucking doing it anymore. America have just decided that they can just show up, tell us how it is, and we're just going to take it. Not unrelated to the first comment on the stream. Thanks, Rod. Love you. Just giving you shit. You're just there. It's said with love and respect. And you strike me as somebody who can hear feedback, I hope. But, we're good. So, but this is the thing where it's like, okay, watch this misinformation, disinformation. That's like, one of them is like falling over someone and putting your dick in. The other one's rape. Like, okay, that didn't work. Again, I'd like to point out that you should not follow every single thought or impulse that goes into your head, Taya, because sometimes you end up in a position where you say something like that. But it is, somewhat to the extent of like, it's like tripping and falling into somebody and knocking them over versus deliberately pushing them over. Like, that's the difference. And the problem is that they're trying to lump all this in together so that you reject all of it. And again, this is that same fucking problem again with this left versus white culture war, the lumping. And they lump it all together. They make you so fatigued, and they sort of, package up complexity. And like I said, this thing is 10 years coming. It's going to take 10 years to work through some of these issues around online speech, especially like how globally these things are implemented. Now, you just need to look at like the Convention on Human Rights, right? The UN Charter. We've got the UN Charter on speech, okay? Elon Musk, oh, that's right. I was talking about how he said that he would follow the laws in each country. Now, I think he fucked up there because the application of these laws, okay, are not even, okay? That's known. Okay, so he would have been better off saying, well, we'll try to follow loosely the principles of the United Nations. But the problem is that because he's sort of in that right-wing bro territory, I think there's kind of a hesitation to, play globalist. I think he panders a little bit to his audience as well. But there's nothing wrong with, again, I wish things were not so muddied in terms of these issues, but I also, because what I see is a whole lot of well poisoning going on, right? Poisoning the well. I don't know if you've heard that term before, where I think his intentions are good, but I don't know whether he's necessarily thought a lot. He may have thought this through, and I think he might just be pandering to his audience and having fun. Holy shit, was it funny? Oh my God. I laughed so hard when he said that NBC built Matt Lauer's rape office. Oh my God. It was so funny. He annoys me. But again, I don't know whether he's just meeting people where they're at or what, but it's like, oh, for fuck's sake. It's an emotional journey, caring about things like this and dark patterns and stuff, and actually really caring about this issue. And having someone at the wheel who thinks that there's this God complex where he doesn't, and this is, again, it's coming here as well, but another American thing where they seem to think that you can run government like you can run a business, which you can't do. Okay, they're different things. They have different outcomes. Like I said, corporations are inherently undemocratic. Okay, there's authoritarian. They're at odds with each other, and even you can't just fire someone because they've got an opinion that you don't like. In a democracy, a functioning democracy, people, even if they're not performing, even if they're underperforming, even if they're screaming and flailing, they're still citizens, and you still got to hear them out. That's what it is. In a corporation, you can just get rid of the problem and pretend it's not there and go away. You can't. This is, yes, you can put some sort of efficiencies in place that run like, private sector, but for the most part, governments are loss-making. Governments, fill the gaps. Governments have processes to hold things to account. This whole narrative that there's some sort of socialist utopia or, capitalist utopia or any of these things, it completely misses the point. Centrist, it completely misses the point. Okay, now, this is the one problem that I've got with Americans, like in general. I love Americans individually, they're great, but as a country, they can go fuck themselves because they just refuse to understand that their definitions do not apply to us, that there is 1,000 years of theory before them and before they fucking started talking and making words up, and that they can't just redefine things and just expect us to not object to that, which is like things like the political spectrum, okay, the history around that and the theory around that and the models and all those things. They're just models, and they're not really very reliable, okay? Somehow you've managed to turn the fucking political compass into a set of cults and football teams that are completely decoupled from economics or politics or anything. There's just nothing, that's completely stripped of politics, if anything, and political theory. There's nothing there. It's brand. And there's just so little depth in again, this is from the outside. Maybe it's different, when on the ground, I'm sure, you got levels of government. But I'm only talking about it in terms of the internet. Okay. Obviously America has a rich and amazing and fascinating history, but you know what? It's not the only one. It's not the only answer. It's not the only definition. It's not the only language. Telling people who speak English that they have an accent. No, you have a fucking accent, Yank. Okay. Telling us how our tech runs, telling us how our speech runs, telling us how our politics is, and fucking with our people's brains. And then when we object to it, like the EU are doing with the DSA, you turn around and say that they're like authority. No, fuck off. You're spreading bullshit and we're sick of it. You're radicalizing everybody and we're fucking sick of it. The reason why the culture wars hates the DSA is because the DSA fucking fixes a lot of the culture wars that are largely coming out of the GOP and their bullshit and the Fox network. Again, this stuff creates, I said this with Elon, I don't want anything other than a level playing field. And this propaganda network that's coming out of, the GOP and the Fox News and that whole ecosystem, right? And that woke ecosystem that works separate to that gross corporate fucking thing that is like the Democrats, right? Fucking fascists. All I want is for them to go away and shut up and let us like have a go. Let us have a minute. Let us be able to like participate freely and fully on these platforms as citizens of the world. This is my frustration with a lot of the discourse on Twitter, with even the lefties on Twitter, where they're like, oh no, it needs to be a public utility. I want nothing less than to be on an American public fucking utility where Americans own it. Get fucked. This is global. No way do I want to be on it. It started out that way. The internet started out with, public money from the US. I'm not ignoring that. But I'm just saying, like, I want nothing less. I would like, firewall, please. Firewall. Please. Burn it to the ground. No, thank you. I don't want it to be a fucking public utility in the United States. No way. They have no idea how their government fucking... This is like when you look at the history of the CIA and all that sort of stuff, it's like America goes, yeah, we won't do it to our citizens. Like this is the other thing, like with Snowden and stuff. It's like everyone's like, they're only upset because they're spying on citizens, not because they're fucking doing it to everyone else. That's perfectly fine. And it's the same thing with like social media and shit. They're only fucking upset when it's them because they think they're the center of the fucking universe. Oh my God, stop chewing. Just 1 second. Anyway, what did I say? Anyway, did I say everything I wanted to say? I always go in with a plan and then I never yeah. Be observant on this misinformation, disinformation, slippery thing. I showed you how one article, I literally just clicked over and it's like, no, it's disinformation, not misinformation. Every time they say misinformation, you check whether they're saying it. And, obviously there's a big factor in disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. I think there should be a fourth one, which is fucking idiots. Idiots on Twitter. Fourth category who should just be ignored. Anyway, I'm going to go. Here's Dolly. Dolly says no. I'm going to show you my gifts. I'm going to go. I love you. Don't you? And I got this. And on that note, I've outstayed my welcome. I'm going to go. Take care. Sorry it went bad. I'll be back soon. Bye. Oh, hang on. Where's my bye button?